Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here at Trumful Reads, and in this video we're going to be doing a short review of a medieval history book because I have been kind of slacking off on my medieval history, and it's In the Wake of the Plague, The Black Death and the World It Made, and this by Norman F. Cantor. And Norman Cantor was a pretty famous popular medieval history writer, and I have one other book by him, but he's got quite a few works out. And I wanted to give this shorter one a try before I read some of the other stuff, and I'm kind of glad I did because it definitely wasn't my favorite, my favorite style, I guess. Basically, I don't know. I just feel like if it's a book on the Black Death, we should have like a nice contextual chapter near the beginning, kind of just on the Black Death, like the statistics of the Black Death, and kind of like what it was, and kind of just setting the whole setting and context of everything. I mean, I know it's more about the world it made, because that's in the subtitle, so it's more about the aftermath of Black Death, but he really doesn't have too much, literally just specifically on just the Black Death in particular, I guess. For example, really, he's sort of chapter beginning with like the history of Europe and stuff regarding the Black Death. It's more about like Edward III and Princess Joan. Princess Joan probably died of the Black Death, but it's more of just like kind of the political backdrop of like the 100 Years' War in the states of England and France and how they were doing, I guess. So it's just kind of weird. Like, it just wasn't enough like on the Black Death in particular. And throughout the entire book, there's just tons and tons of tangents where he's just going on about like he has something kind of related to the aftermath of the Black Death. But then he'll take, like, for example, one particular monastery and just, like, talk about it for, like, a couple pages. And you're just like, it's kind of... He does that, like, so many times. And it's not, like... It looks kind of like a normal-sized book, but the font's actually pretty big. So it's a fairly short read. So it just kind of felt kind of weird. I don't know. Having that many tangents. Like, for example, he does, like, at the end of the book, has sort of, like, scientific theories on the Black Death. And, like... He kind of lists a couple, and then the one he talks about the most, probably out of all of them, all of the potential, candidates for how either the Black Death started in the 1300s or where it came from or whatever, because there probably was bubonic plague and other eras such as the Byzantine plague under the reign of Justinian. But for example, like I was saying, the biggest theory he kind of like describes the most is like this cosmic dust theory, like we got the Black Death, like plague virus or disease from like comet shower dust, basically, like coming down onto the Earth, and it's like that has got to be like one of the most like far-fetched. Even if there is like he doesn't actually give really. There's not even like that much support for it, but he's like, it's just one of those things, we have to keep our minds open and like look for and stuff. But I'm like, you should at least give all the other candidates like as much attention as the freaking cosmic dust theory. I was just like, come on, not in like a history book anyways, that's just weird. I don't know. But the reason it's not even the fact that it's just like, it's viruses come from outer space. It's just, he gave so much attention to just that one he even admits there's hardly any support even in like the scientific community for it. So it was just like, like, why are we going on these like random tangents about like randomness, I guess. There were a few things I did learn, like for example, I've studied the Black Death a little bit before, so I know it wasn't just the Black Death, but he does make a good case that kind of beef diseases such as anthrax and stuff were probably a big component of the Black Death, and it wasn't just bubonic plague. So that was kind of good. And he also does describe a lot of the aftermath stuff was pretty good when he doesn't go on the tangents. Like his general principle, I guess, is pretty good. Basically, women were able to get quite a few, pretty much their lot in life definitely improved after the Black Death as compared to before, basically because of the manpower shortage, things of that nature. So his general principles or general ideas are good. It's just when he starts going into specifics, he goes off on these like really, really specific tangents. For example, like his whole like description of when he was talking about basically like land prices and things of that nature, and basically like the legal, like how legal code was codified quite a bit because of the aftermath of the Black Death, and like that's a pretty good principle. But he goes on like this huge tangent between the Lord Grey and Hastings, and they're like kind of argument with each other, which is like a drama, like a like a medieval basically soap opera. But he goes on like that tangent for like several pages, and it's just like I don't want to know that much about like this one particular case. So I felt like he definitely focused too much on like little peculiar things in his grander scheme, I guess. But he does do a good job describing basically how a lot of like real estate laws were basically put forth after the Black Death. How the Black Death sort of brought in the economic conditions for like, say, for example, the 1381 Peasants' Revolt, which I've studied quite a bit, and that really interests me. And he does do a good job explaining how basically there was like why the labor shortage would cause like all these things basically because of the Black Death. Thought that was really good. Some of his other he has like these weird these weird facts too that I'm pretty sure and like I'm just like what, like he mentions at one point like in some instances it would take half an hour to reload a crossbow, and he like kind of mentions that in passing, and I was just like I couldn't tell if that was like a typo or like what. It just made like no sense at all to me. I was like, it doesn't take half an hour to reload a crossbow. So I thought that was kind of weird. And I will say his chapter, for the most part, his chapter on the basically the Black Death's impact on like the Jewish population in Europe is pretty good. Especially on like kind of the eastern relocation of the Jews. Why there was basically a Jewish migration to Eastern Europe during the 1350s, basically right after the Black Death because of the persecution, and how the princes of Poland and was it Hungary, I think, were very accommodating. That was really good, and I explained quite a bit. But he gets kind of in like this like really kind of murky, awkwardish water where he doesn't like come out and like blame the Jews for their own like problems, but it's kind of like this like awkward situation where he's basically like the Jews weren't helping themselves out any for all their persecution. It's just kind of like I don't know. It just was kind of I don't know. It was just the way he worded some things. Just I felt could have done better. I think I knew what he was trying to say, but it just didn't come across very good. But anyways, like I said, I learned a little bit. I rolled my eyes quite a bit. I sighed quite a bit just because of all the tangents. So overall, I don't know if I mean, if you're really intimidated by history and you really want to learn about the Black Death, you could probably pick this one up. I just say be careful a little bit. But if you like lots of anecdote and vignettes in your books, probably pick this one up. If you've already studied the Black Death, probably I wouldn't recommend this one. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the other books that he's written. Like I have one other somewhere, his most famous work, which is The Civilization of the Middle Ages. I have that one, but that one's even bigger, so I don't know if I'm going to end up reading that one or picking up some of his other works, because he has a book on like it's called like The Last Knight, and I think it was published posthumously, and I think it's about John of Gaunt, which is like a character I really want to learn about because he was kind of an important figure during the era of the Peasants' Revolt. But now I'm like I don't know if I'm going to read it, but I probably will at some point. But yeah, I'm not gonna super recommend this book, like I said, unless you really are intimidated by like some of the other books. There is another book on the Black Death that came out not too long ago. I think it was by I don't know if it was like Zimmerman or something like that. Might pick that one up as well in the near future. But overall, I'm only gonna give In the Wake of the Plague 2.5 stars, just because there was definitely factual errors that I picked up when I thought he was probably like a medieval scholar. There's probably more maybe that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Plus, like I said, it was just not like fun to read. To be honest, it was just like all over the place. I don't know, but that's just me. If you guys have any questions or comments about the Black Death or this book, leave them down below. I'll be glad to talk to you guys about them. If you have other medieval history book recommendations, leave them down below. Definitely be glad to go check those out. Go check out the website if you guys haven't already. And whatever you guys are reading, always remember, read victoriously.